What is going on, everybody? My name is Daryk Ganske, and you're listening to The Other Day podcast. I am your host today, and I hope you are doing well. I will get straight to the point today. We have a little bit of a longer podcast. I really enjoyed all the feedback I got regarding the most recent episode regarding my elk trip. Thank you for bearing with me, as it was about 2 a.m. after driving 17 hours all day. I was very exhausted, very tired, but wanted to get my thoughts out to you as quickly as I could. So thank you for listening to that, and thank you for taking the time to ask me questions about what we did and what I enjoyed about the trip. Let's get straight to the point. I found an old recording that my parents and I did in 2016 on the way back from our deer lease, where we talked about anything and everything. It was a really great recording where I just got some quality time with them after a very needed weekend at the deer lease chasing the elusive white-tailed deer. I can't wait for you to listen to this podcast. I hope you take it as a learning tool, just to look at maybe the relationships you can build outdoors, maybe some motivation to get you outdoors, or even just to realize how much fun I had growing up in the outdoors. But thank you so much for listening. This podcast will sound a little bit strange, as I recorded it on an earlier concept called Take a Hike that I thought I was going to create. Did not come to fruition, and therefore I'm here with The Other Day podcast. So I hope you enjoy it. This is me and my parents on The Other Day podcast, talking about our experience with the outdoors. Thanks, guys. What is going on, guys? If you're enjoying The Other Day with Daryk Ganske, here's a couple things that I have been thinking about that is really awesome about this podcast. One, I use Anchor to create this podcast. It's free. The creation tools are right there, all within the app, all on your computer, where you can edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you also, so you don't have to worry about RSS feeds. You don't have to worry about how to get it there or looking at analytics on different platforms. It goes straight to Spotify and Apple and many more that you can listen to podcasts on. You make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. So anybody who listens, you can make money from. If you have a ton of podcast listeners, you can make money from it. If you have just a little bit and you're starting from the bottom, now you're there. All you got to do is use Anchor. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Let me tell you how to do it. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's Anchor, ANCHOR.FM to get started. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today. I can't wait to listen to your podcast.
This is your host, Daryk Ganske, and we're back on the road again with two very special guests. These two mean a lot to me, and this is a really important podcast to me, and that's why I've been trying to think about it for a long time, trying to see what I want to talk about. But this is the Take a Hike podcast, where we talk about any and everything outdoors. The main focus is just to learn about how people use the outdoors and what it means to them. So this podcast is really important and special to me because I am here and joined today with my parents, and we are headed back from one of our favorite places on earth, the deer lease. We've been going to the deer lease before, since I can ever remember. My mom and dad have been going to Fredericksburg, Texas, Lano, Texas, the Central Texas Hill Country area in search of the elusive mature white-tailed buck. So we've been doing that for a long time, had a lot of great times. Spent a lot of time in the Texas Hill Country doing that, a lot of Thanksgivings. Took some time off for me to play football in high school, and now we're back at it now that I am on my own and have plenty of time during the fall to make that happen. So one of the things about this podcast is really important is the fact that, like, when you're outside, a lot of times you're doing something and you're making memories with people. So, a lot of memories happen at the deer lease. So, first and foremost, let's just start off with, like, a really general question. And, again, we can talk about any and everything y'all want. It doesn't even have to be included in the outdoor, very broad outdoor spectrum. So hit me with what you want. But my first question for y'all just is, growing up, how did you use the outdoors? Like, what were some of your favorite activities to do outside?
Hunting and fishing.
Hunting and fishing. What did you hunt and what did you fish for?
Well, hunting, we enjoy chasing the white-tailed deer and just being out in the deer stand and seeing what will walk up. You never know. There's been times where, you can see anything. I mean, you can see white-tailed deer, you can see raccoons, armadillos, turkeys, black buck, antelope. We've seen a lot of different creatures out there. Pigs, just all kind of stuff. It's kind of neat to sit there and look around and see what might show up. So,
well, I didn't grow up in Texas. I grew up in southeast Kansas, and my outdoor memories were spent exploring some of the prairie grasslands of Texas and part of the Flint Hills of the Ozark Mountains. One of my favorite memories is spending the afternoon with friends from the neighborhood and exploring an empty lot, trees, and finding a tree or a bush, and we'd spend weeks building a little clubhouse or whatever we could make out just outside in our own, making our own world and our own place, growing up in just nature and making and building a rope swing and maybe a little fort where we would find an old cigar box or something and make a treasure box out of it, hide secret codes and notes for each other, so if one of us got to play and one of us was in trouble, the next time the other one got out there, they knew what we'd done, and things like that. We spent a lot of time fishing with my grandfather. He ran a local newspaper, and would spend time, and he had an old Falcon station wagon with a John boat in it. We got up early enough on Saturday morning, you could go to Grandpa and spend the day. We could, you never knew where you were going to land, and you could find a fishing spot. Sometimes it was fun, and sometimes it was a little work jumping to get that John boat out and into the water and fish all day, and then get out, stop somewhere for dinner, and visit with folks around, and just enjoy the outdoors.
Yeah, your comment about the building forts and things like that made me think of the countless shenanigans that we've had on deer leases with that I've had on other deer leases with Spencer, my brother, and then the other kids that were there, thinking about like Amy and Ryan now, but Amy and Cody and all of it. It was a lot of fun. So I guess that kind of leads me into my next question. It's a good thing you kind of brought that up was, one of the things that y'all always did was we've always been hunting. Like, that's always kind of something we've always done. What is it like, raising kids like myself and Spencer to be outdoorsmen and to just hunt and fish and just enjoy generally just being outside? Like, it doesn't have to just be about like hunting and fishing, but you know, like, what was that like? You know, like, was there any backlash, or was there any, I don't know. Like, I just want to hear y'all's opinion on just taking us and doing things.
Well, I guess the deer lease in the hill country was kind of a getaway for us on weekends. You know, we work all week long and have our family and our lives in Brenham, Texas, and you know, our work and our church, and so on weekends we like to go out and explore other areas and other parts of the state, and really, you know, really like the hill country, and I just remember years ago going deer hunting for the first time in the hill country. I just remember driving, getting on the other side of Austin and seeing all the rocks and all the, you know, the trees and the cedars and, you know, all the different landscape. And I remember thinking, you know, this is deer country. This is where deer live, you know. And so it's just been an adventure, really, you know. We've been on a bunch of different deer leases. Some of them have lasted a lot longer than others. And really been blessed and thankful for everyone we've been on, you know. It's taken nice people. We've met nice people along the way that have shared their property with us, let us come on their property and explore and have a good time. And so I guess that's the main thing, is that it's just it's a good getaway. I think you know, out in nature. And I think that for kids to grow up in that atmosphere, I think it's good for kids to grow up in the outdoors. They gain a respect for nature and you know, ethics and firearms, and to respect firearms, and you know, just nature and living off the wildlife that we're fortunate to take. Everything we shoot, we eat, and we clean, and you know, we process and eat during the rest of the year. So we go out and hunt in the fall. We shoot a few deer, and we make hamburger meat out of the venison and grind the meat, package it in the packages, 1.5 pound packages, and so we have hamburger for the rest of the year. And so, you know, boys know how to grind hamburger, they know how to process meat, and so I think those are skills that may help them down the road in life. And so, anyway.
Well, I think, you know, when you spend time in the outdoors, you take your kids, teach them respect for God's country and God's gift is the world to us, and we're asked to take care of it. So we teach, as you raise your kids, you teach them to be good stewards of the land. You know, leave no trace, kind of some of the teachings of the Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts, scouting organizations. And then you take the kids out, you don't have the distractions of the modern day world with technology and television and all of those things. And you can, at that point, you can tell them stories. You can tell them stories your grandparents used to tell, or and so they learn a little bit of family history with them. And then they get out there and they get to be stewards of the land. You can teach them about nature, the plants, the animals that are out there, and you teach them to watch for what I've taught the kids and the boys growing up are things called God signs, the beautiful colors of the sunrise, the small cardinal that happens to sit next to you on the window of your deer stand. Sometimes they're just little symbols that there's a higher power, being, God, there for you, communicating with you through nature and giving you those gifts and the beauty of the world that's out there for us to care for and take care for. And when God provides us with the deer, He provides that as food for our family. We don't take more than we can eat, and we process everything we shoot. Teach the kids how to do that. Some of my favorite memories are before, Daryk, you were even barely old enough to toddle around. As a 2-year-old, you definitely weren't quiet enough to sit and stand. But we'd go out to the deer pasture with Dad, and you had a little pork popping gun, and we'd sit in the truck. And as long as the weather was warm enough, we could sit with the windows open, and you'd sit on my lap, and I'd teach you how to sit there real quiet, watch for things. And I remember one of the times we first noticed, as soon as the birds started chirping, we knew the deer would come through, and we'd sit there and wait. We'd watch the deer come through, and we'd pretend that you knew if it was a shooter or just a doe and her baby. And then sometimes you'd get all excited and pop that old pork gun. And then other times we'd sit in that truck and get a little cold and curl up in the blanket and tell each other stories. And that's good bonding time with your children and listening to them and laughing. And I remember one story Daddy telling about, Daddy, you would pipe in on this, about taking Daryk and your daddy to the deer lease, and I think I stayed back to get supper ready that evening, and you were sitting in one stand, and you dropped them off in another stand with this little BB gun, and they were going to sit there and shoot guns, and you were sitting there, and you were quiet in your stand, and every once in a while you'd hear laughing and cutting up, and you were like, goodness gracious, what's going on? And then you'd get quiet again, and pretty soon you'd hear laughing and cutting up. And if Grandpa was here today, he'd still laugh about sitting in the deer stand with Daryk. There were a couple of does in the feeder pen, and he convinced old Daryk he could pop that old BB gun and pop that old doe. Well, Daddy didn't think he was going to get there. It was making far enough. Well, apparently one of them did, and that old doe popped up, kicked her legs out, and they got to laughing and cutting up so bad that Daryl could hear them over the next hill in the stand, just laughing and cutting up. So those are good family times and memories. And when they came back that night, they hit that door laughing and cutting up and talking about it. That was the topic of the evening, and it was just one little, one afternoon hunt and deer lease, not even for that trophy buck, just to sit out there and enjoy time with each other. And I think that's important, to get your kids outside and away from the grind of school and work, and they need to disconnect a little bit. And as they grow older, it gives them a peaceful place to make connection with their thoughts, sort their thoughts and feelings out. Even as a teenager, we try to at least find a weekend or something to get out and even camp with Daryk, even with the busy schedule that you had with football and honor activities and things as you went into the high school, college years. And that weekend out sometime was just been walking. I don't think we've even ever gone to a campground that we didn't find the nature trail and just enjoy looking for tracks and different plants and what kind of animals were back in there, and just, again, looking for those God signs. So that's the best way to raise a kid, is in the outdoors, and teach them to respect it, that it's a gift and it's a balance and it's a circle, and kind of puts everything back into perspective in life. So anyway, that's raising kids in the outdoors.
Well, Mom knows how to raise kids, so she told us how to do it right there. If you looking to raise kids, call Mom. She knows how to do it. I guess that's her no, okay.
Well,
well. No, I think y'all both hit like really good points on that I take from the outdoors personally. Like I think first and foremost, like I think your God signs point about finding God in nature is something that like it's always meant something to me and always has meant something to everyone of us. Like I think that kind of leads into just respecting nature. Like we're not out there like killing, we're not out there shooting every deer we see or anything like that. And we're not out there planning to do that. We're out there just honestly to watch deer and enjoy them and make sure that entire herd is as healthy as possible. And then secondly, one of the other points that y'all kind of hit on was this is kind of something we've always done, was go to the deer lease and go to the outdoors with like friends and family, and making those bonding memories are something that you'll never get above, like ever in life. And that just taking time to talk is one of the best things you can possibly do in the outdoors. Whether it's at a campsite or on a boat or in a deer pond or wherever you want to go. But I think that is another really good point that you had. And then, Daddy, you kind of got a little bit in depth about how we talk, how we process our meat and what we're doing with deer meat and things like that. And I think that's a really good sign of showing another good moral of just hard work, like showing how growing up, like there was no denying that Spencer and I were going to have to work and put in a lot of work to shoot a deer, and you wouldn't let us shoot a deer without putting in all that work. So with that being said, I mean, there was just so many things that we had to do, whether it was sighting in and cleaning our guns, or filling the feeders, or stocking the car, or helping cook, or building the stand. Yeah, I mean, that was a huge thing too. We all pitched in to help build a deer stand. If you've never built a deer stand before from scratch, you're missing out, because it's really hard work. But it's I mean, just little things like that are like why I enjoy hunting so much, is because weekends like this weekend where we go sit and Dad and I see 20 deer sit, or like a lot of deer, which is great, but the thing is, we're not out there chasing, we're not out there paying money. We're putting in the work so we're not out there paying money to go sit one time and shoot a monster deer in a high fence place. My point is, we're putting in the work, putting in the time, putting in the hours to sit and wait and enjoy ourselves, and talk and mess with each other and have a good time watching deer. And when that big buck steps out, or that big doe steps out, or a good coal buck steps out, that moment is just well spent that much more. It's hunting is not about the kill itself. It's the culmination of the whole experience. So, that's one of those things that I kind of gravitate to, is just, I put in so much work to take this one deer, that this deer means that much to me, and so to make sure that they're fed, and make sure that they're healthy and protected, and have a place that they feel safe, and so it's just it's several things that culminate together to give us some beautiful white-tailed deer. So, yeah, that encompasses everything for me for outdoors. Do y'all have anything else that y'all would like to add or talk about in the outdoors? And y'all are welcome to ask me any questions or anything like that.
What's your favorite memory from hunting?
My favorite memory from hunting.
Or being out with family and friends and deer
Well,
pastures?
let's start with the first one. My favorite memory from hunting was shooting my first doe, my first deer, which was a doe ever. My first doe I shot in Atlanta, Texas, and I shot it with a .243 caliber Remington rifle, and I shot it under the feeder. She ran around to the right, expired, and then we went to pick her up, and I cleaned her. And Daddy put blood, as tradition is, on my cheeks, and that was kind of it. But what made me so excited about that, and I think back on it now, that's why it's the most exciting. When I was in the moment, I was probably annoyed at some point, or like just being a goofball and not paying attention or something. But looking back on it now, the reason that made it was so fun and so cool was we struggled to get into that stand. We had to take chairs with us to get in there, and Dad had a chair, and Spencer was sitting on my left, Dad was sitting on my right, and I was sitting in a high chair because I was too short. At 9 years old, I was too short to see out of the windows. They were too high up. And I remember the doe came out. Dad was like, "That's a big doe. You need to shoot that. Daryk, why don't you shoot that doe?" So I get up in my high chair, I get the gun up, and he said, "Put her right on his shoulder." I did. I said, "Okay, now just squeeze the trigger, just like you did when you were shooting the plate." And I squeezed the trigger, and I shot her, and she ran around the corner, expired, and went and got her. But one of the things that cracked me up was I was so small and up so high that I shot, and the high chair leaned back. And I was going to fall over into the back of the stand. Daddy grabbed the back of the chair and pushed me back forward. And yeah, that was a funny memory. We laughed about that. Got so excited about that deer that it was fun. Favorite memory outdoors, maybe was just overall, just maybe experiencing something outdoors. I think was my first time ever seeing mountains. That was crazy. If you've never been to the Rocky Mountains or seen snow, that's an experience that you have to get into. And I think that the Rocky Mountains are something everybody should be able to see. They're just so rugged, so vast, and so tall, and so just prominent in that area that there's no denying. Like, that's just it. They're just there. There's no stopping. So, yeah, seeing the Rocky Mountains is probably one of my favorite things to do. But,
Do you have a favorite memory with friends of the family or something with Amy?
yeah, I mean, there's a ton. Like it would take me hours to go through.
How about redneck yard darts?
Redneck Yard Darts was a good one. I thought that the fort we made at Penny and Julie's place was really fun too.
Oh, that was down the hill,
Yeah,
right?
down the hill at the bottom. Redneck Yard Darts is a rendition of "Hey kids, go play with these corn on the cobs" that we just ate off of. And what it was we cooked and grilled corn on the cob and left the husks on and set up a hula hoop. And when you get real bored out in the country, you give the kids these husk corn cobs and let them dry out, and then give it to the kids, and they can try and throw it up as high as they can, and then it has to land in the hula hoop, and whoever can land it in the hula hoop wins. So that's the game of Redneck Yard Darts, and that is a very fun game. It's like really fun. That's actually a really good idea. We should probably make a tailgate game out of that. That's a great idea. But yeah, it's redneck yard darts. And then another good memory that we had as kids was we used to make forts, and we would make them in the woods, like legit, like with trees, and make roofs and walls and rooms and things like that. We especially liked it whenever we could find a massive pile of scrap wood or some scrap bush that we could carve into. So that would be really cool, where we could break trees and stuff in it to make little huts and stuff in it. And that was really fun. And it's pretty crazy because, yeah, y'all definitely let me just do that without worrying about what I got into in there, which was cool. So, yeah, that's another thing is, nowadays kids aren't necessarily getting the dirt under their fingers like I did, So that was another cool thing that y'all were just kind of like, yeah, go do what you want, and if you get bit or, or hurt or something, you're going to learn. And, I definitely did get bit and get hurt and break things, and I definitely learned, So that was a good experience, one of the things I asked a little bit earlier, but we can kind of go off of that a little bit was, what were some of the things that your parents or you as a kid did that you remember, or your parents or your grandparents did that were so fun outside?
Well, the only thing my parents did was took us camping. We went camping. That's kind of where I started, liking the camp and stuff. Was going to different campgrounds, camping on the weekends and stuff like that. You know, my mother and father really didn't do a lot of fishing. They did some, but very, they really didn't put a whole lot of effort into it. Then when I got old enough, in high school and college, I kind of went out on my own and had other friends that took hunting and fishing to the next level. So I kind of just took, I guess mom and dad did give me a good base, and just camping. But then it just kind of fostered my, it kind of started me off in the outdoors, but then I just kind of really took it to the next level after I got old enough to do so. So again, I got, good friends that like to deer hunt, and I'd never deer hunted before. And so I started going with them. We had such a good time. We got on deer leases together, and that's kind of where it all started out. And then as each one of us got married and had kids, then we kind of took our kids and our family with us and started, making the deer hunts more of a family affair instead of just, single guy beer drinking fest. We kind of made it more of a family outing and had a lot of fun with it. So anyway, but yeah, like I said, my parents were outdoors people only because they camped, but really didn't do any serious hunting or fishing.
Oh, I think growing up, my grandparents, every year they took a trip to an area of Minnesota called Crow Wing Lake. They had some friends that had some cabins up there, and like I said earlier, my grandfather just loved to fish. We'd drive up there, and I can remember it being cold in August, and in that part of the northern part of our great United States, and only being able to swim from about 2 to 3 because the water was cold. And then I remember being up there one time, and there was a Native American tribe that harvested. At the time, I can't tell you what it was. I was little, probably between 6 and 10 years old, and they would bend the reeds over and beat the grain into boats, and that was a pretty neat thing to see. And then just the hand-hewn cabins that we stayed in, having to sleep under a quilt in August when you come from southeast Kansas and now even Texas. That's just not even fathomable. I think those were fun times. Going to state parks, natural museums, caves, things like that, exploring. My parents did a lot of that with us. We, even in the area of Minnesota, when we went up there, one of the places we enjoyed going was Itasca State Park, and getting to fly in the seaplane and land on the lake. And at the time, I don't even know if it's still there, there was a big rendition of Paul Bunyan invading his big blue ox, and I can still remember that, standing underneath it. And as an adult, I remember going to see the headwaters of the Mississippi, and it looked just like a little creek. And now the appreciation of it really did just start from like a springwater creek. And now knowing and having been and seen the southern part of it, that's a pretty cool thing to think about, the concept and nature and all the things that water provides and springs from, the earth. I guess one of my favorite memories was we lived in Iowa at the time, and I was, of all those kids, I was one that wanted to go and enjoyed going out with my stepdad, and he enjoyed doing some dove hunting, pheasant hunting, and some things like that. And I remember going with him one time. There was just enough snow on the ground, probably ankle deep for me, and we went out pheasant hunting, and I got to wear his big game vest under the responsibility of being the one that had to carry everything home. And it was a very successful.
Put the work in.
Yeah, to put the work in. And so it was a successful pheasant hunt. And so I think it was maybe quail, can't remember. And but I can remember coming home and thinking that I had to walk 10 miles in the snow with a vest that was so full I could barely carry it. And I'm sure it probably wasn't that heavy and all of that, but it probably had a couple nice birds in it, some quail or dove. And but that's a memory that I have. And being a girl, that was, like I was pretty raw, get out and go do things like that. So I always enjoyed being outside, and I just enjoy being outside. There's a calmness to it and a peacefulness that even at work, when I'm at work now, if I have to write reports or something, I'll go outside sometimes and sit for a minute to get my mind straight and just enjoy the peacefulness and the quietness of nature and the sounds that it can give you and things like that. So those are some of my memories of growing up with my family and doing things. We, always knew where the local state park was, and day trips and exploring and, hikes and things like that. So I think we tried to do that with you boys and raise you up that way so that, when times get tough, you turn to the outdoors and kind of get your center back in place. And that's where we came from, where we began, and where it should always go back to. It's part of the circle.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think we would like to close it out right here. Thank you for joining us on the Take a Hike podcast. We are headed home from the deer lease with my parents right now. Some of the background noise that you probably hear, it's actually cars going by, but hey, that's what we're doing. We're coming at you from anywhere and everywhere, just getting the insight on how people feel about the outdoors. So Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate y'all being on my Take a Hike podcast and just talking a little bit more seriously about why we're doing this, why we're in the truck right now coming home from the deer lease, or why we even went. So some of those things are cool to think about sometimes and important to a lot of people, so I really appreciate it. Thanks for catching us, guys, and you'll see us next time on Take Hike Podcast.